Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Because the time very limited, is about 20 minutes behind the schedule. So I will give my key point to all of you and answer some questions. And because I'm here several times, a lot of people know what my ideas. So today I will divide my speech into three parts. First, what's the competitiveness and the development trend of China's steel industry. The second, what's the China's supply structure for the steel industries. And finally, I will give my view about the China's steel market this year and the next year. So the time limit, I only give the key point. And you can see for the modern steel industries, they have the role to shift from Europe to America, now to China. So what's the reason why China's steel industry can develop so fast? Because China now is the center of the steel producer. Because China is the consumption center. It consumes about 45% of world steel. Of course, with the fast development of Chinese steel industries, China now exports some steel to the world. I think the key for the steel to develop is these reasons. First, the economic development. All you know, China now #1 of the world economy. But what's more important, since the year 2010, China #1 of the world industry producer. So now you can see China the 10 times, half of the world steel. But what's more important than a lot of infrastructure and machinery, also automobile industries. You can see last year, China produced about more than 28 million automobiles of automobiles. This year will be nearly 30 million tons, 30 million units of automobile industries. A lot of market is there. Another very important reason is that technical development, improvement for China's steel industries, improve the efficiency, improve the quality. So that's more important. Also, we can think steel industry, the labor intensive and the capital intensive. So now China have this advantage also. So that's why China steel develop so fast. And I think this factor give the China steel the reason to develop. And even in the future, I'm still thinking we still can keep increase. So now, the world steel consumption very close to the world economy. You can see for the past years, the economic change give the market for steel. But according to my understanding, we think the steel industry will enter a new stage. Cannot increase very fast as the past, cannot decrease very fast. Will be at a stable staging for the coming time. And also, even we face a lot of protection and anti-dumping, the steel trade still keep increased. Roughly, according to world statistical numbers, about 30% of the world steel to export directly, and another 20% indirect export. So this picture will show you the top 10 exporter. Of course, China is the #1 exporter. But because our total volume, total output is the half of world, but the proportion of export not very much, only about 13%, much lower. The world average is 30%, or even much lower than the other more exporting intensive countries. So, according to our understanding, with the China faster development, we should think and take China steel export naturally. Why? First, you can say we should positively, for a market, only competition can improve the industries. So that's very important. So with China increase export, give the competition globally to push steel industry more development. Second, I think we should understand China export not only one country, few countries. We export more than 13 countries and regions And what's more important than the historical trade, I said before, before China import a lot of steel. By the end of the year 2014, China total import of steel production from other countries, European, American, Japan, total about 600 million tons. So now, with the market here, market in China, give the opportunity for China steel to develop. So now China can export. So that's another story. So we cannot expect China's continue import steel. Also, we should understand that integrally the population not very high, and what's key is China's steel products can meet the market. That means the quality, service, everything, the price. And also, you can see China's steel industry developed very fast, not with the volume, but also the quality, with upgrading the technology. And China steel industry can provide the high quality, good service, good price for the customer. That's very important. So, and also we should follow the role of the development, and we see we should record the shift of world steel now in China. So that's very important. Nobody can change it. And now everybody talking about the overcapacity. Yes, only China take a very serious step to dealing with the overcapacity. During the past 5 years, we cut about 90 million tons in a 12-5-year plan. And from last year and this year, China cut another 115 million tons. So we're looking globally. Only China take the step to reduce the overcapacity issues. And what's more important, I repeat again, China is still much better than before, even better than the developing countries for the quality, service, everything. So that's the true story. We cannot deny it. And that's why we think we cannot deny the China steel export. So that's our way of thinking. So of course, China steel consumption reached a peak according to our understanding. Even some year, maybe this year, we still keep a little increase. But generally speaking, the China steel consumption reached a peak at a high level, stable down, step. And also, China steel output cannot increase, so will be down, step. That's the situation. So for this year, it's a very, very complicated. Why? Because China eliminated about more than 100 million tons of industrial furnace. We think, and that's very backward. We should eliminate it. So which affected the static numbers. Before the industrial furnace operation, not including our national static numbers. So that's why for this year it's very, very complicated to give the clear analysis. So anyhow, we still keep our way of thinking. You can see for the first 8 months, China still increased about 5.6%. So still keep increase. Even for this month, so China still keep increase. That's the situation. Of course, and last 2 years, China still exported more than 100 million tons. But for this year, for the first 8 months, China still export decreased about 28.5%. I think it's good news for the world and for some marketing. According to my understanding, the key is we eliminate the overcapacity issues. We cut the industrial furnace, and the demand and supply reach a new balance, so the price in China increases, so that still companies don't have the desire to export. So that's the market-oriented situation in China. So price increase. So of course, this year China steel company have a good profits. So I don't want too much. So why China steel can be so strong, much expected the idea. First, the largest market in China, about 45% of world market in China. So the second, we have very complicated industrial supply chain, very, very strong, guarantee the operation. Also, we have very strong and human labor resources. So you can see nobody can imagine now every year, China have a new university students, about 8 million new university students graduated. So 8 million. So very, very strong, high labor force. Some of them is the steel industry majors. So that's one thing. Another very important, now the most advanced technology equipment in China steel industry. And what's more important, because of the oversupply, the Chinese steel company paid more attention to increase the service before sales and after sales, give the better service for customer. That's why the China steel products are very popular globally. So that's why we are our mission. China steel product can provide good service, good price, good skills, and good service, good quality, and good brand. So that's why I meet a lot of customers. They ask me, Mr. Li, please tell your producer, if you have the channels, we want to have a long-term relationship with steel producer. So that's why the customer is the key for China to export. So another very important result. After we study the past 200 years steel industries, you can see for the past 200 years, UK about the leader of the 80 years, US about 60 years, now China 20 years. And according to the volume, everything taken into account, we think China steel will lead the world more than 100 years. That's very important for China steel industry to develop in the future. So that's our conclusion for the world steel in the future. And of course, we enter a new stage. We don't expand our capacity. We reduce production stage. And what's more important, the structure of the steel industry will be changing in China. That means the EAF production will be increased step by step. So currently the EAF produces not more than 10%, and in the future I think at least more than 20%, maybe 30%, taking the big number of the basis. So what's the way for us? If China can be more than 100 years of steel leaders, what do we do? We pay more attention environment friendly and increase the consolidation and consolidations and improve the quality continuously and have a new standard, high standards to lead the steel industries, also differentiate and service oriented and diversify our business and pay more attention in the intelligent manufacturers. Now, a lot of Chinese steel companies pay more attention how to increase the efficiency and guarantee quality by the way of intelligent process. Of course, at the same time, with one Belt One Road strategies, we encouraging the good company to go overseas. Not all the companies go overseas. That's the way of Chinese steel industry. So, of course, for the China take a very, very big step for the supply side structure. What's the influence of China's steel industry? First, you can see we give it the concept to cut overcapacity. So for the proposal to give the proposal for to cut the backward, we begin in the year 1998, and from the 1990 to 2015, we take a lot of efforts to upgrading equipment, a lot of new technology, new equipment imported globally. And from last year, we take very, very more seriously to cut the overcapacity. That's the China mission, the supply side structure reform. So you can see, and need the equipment for us to reduce, to limit the equipment. You can see in the year 1999, we cut all the facilities. Now, since the year 2015, we cut all the equipment. You can see for the equipment, much modernized in the steel industry. Of course, this picture show you the last in the 12-5-year plan. We take every 5-year plan. 12-5-year plan, we cut over 90 million tons, and so in the 13-5-year plan, we cut another 140 million tons. You can see the capacity cutting in China is more than 3 times in Europe Union. within 5 years. But you can see before European Union take a much long time. So even for US, we cut 2 times of the capacity in nearly half of the time of US. For Japan, also the same. We cut more than 4 times of the capacity in half of the time Japanese use it. So you can see it's not an easy job, because we also involve a lot of unemployment. Last year, we cut about 200,000 steel people have a new job. You cannot imagine 200,000. This year, more than 100,000 people will leave the steel job. So it's not an easy job. So you cannot say it's cut your capacity, solve the overcapacity issues. It's involved a lot of issues. The employment is very, very key. Another is data issues. So what we do, we follow the law and regulation. What's the law? The environmental issues and the energy consumption quality and the safety regulation to cut it. And also we encouraging the low efficient facility leave the market. So you can say what's the result? So I mentioned before, from last year to this year, China cut about 150 million tons. So the 5-year plan to cut about 150 million tons. Only 2 years we finished about more than 82%. So at the same time, a lot of structure improvement. We not only cut the overcapacity issues, but we also to improve the efficiency, quality, everything. And we also not only cut the facility, but we also ask or call on the steel company to control their production, not increase very fast. But I'm sorry that the market did the year a little better than before. First, because now about 55% of the steel consumption in the investment area. You can see in the first 8 months, China investment in the infrastructure increased about nearly 20%. Another very important, the machinery. You can see the first half of the years, the China export on the machinery increased about 14%. So also give the market, good market for China Steel company. So that's why China Steel keep increasing the year. So what's the marketing? The time limit, I give very quickly issues. For this year, you can see, I mentioned that for the, we divide our consumption into different parts. First, to the investment area, you can see for this year, 2017, the good market for the infrastructure, for the investment in the area. This year, the total building industry will consume about 370 million tons, so a little increase. And for the machinery, this year will consumption about 132 million tons, also a little increase, about 4.8% increase. And for the automobile industry, I mentioned them before. So you can see this year the China will produce nearly 13 million automobiles, which increase the market for steel will be about 57.5 million ton high quality steel products. Also the shipbuilding, you can see the first 7 months, the shipbuilding also increased about 55.1%. A good market for the plate. Also for the home appliance, so still keep increase. A good market for high quality flat products. And totally, we think this year the China steel consumption will be about 700 million tons, a little increase, because I mentioned the local market good, and the export for the machinery increased. Also, we cut the overcapacity for the Bangalore facility. So that's a little complicated for the numbers. So that's the general situation. And also, this year, China still import a little increase, not too much. According to my forecast, China steel import will be a little more than 13 million tons, and the export will be roughly about 80 million tons. So that's the year's import and export. So, and for the steel consumption next year, we will forecast the steel consumption. We should take the China economy, development, the structure, and the investment, and also we take into account the international market. So for totally taking into account, we think next year China steel consumption, production will be stable, cannot increase very much. Then one thing, and also next year China steel export will also maybe maintain the 80 million tons. The import about a little more than 10 million tons. That's the general the market situation in China. So then, because the time limit, I give very quickly of the key point of my understanding. Thank you very much. I finished.
Thank you very much, Mr. Li. We really love to hear increase in Chinese steel consumption, even if not too much. It's always great to hear increase in China. Any questions for Mr. Li from the floor? Can I start with my question? Well, excuse me. First of all, you said that you expect you said that the Chinese steel consumption or demand has peaked, and you expect slight increase in consumption. But we have heard from Australian Central Bank that they expect higher steel production in China, and that the demand of iron ore will be much higher, etc., etc. But on the other hand, supply of iron ore will also be much higher because of new investments. What's your prediction? What's your expectation on iron ore market?
And thank you very much for the question. You know, I also involve a lot of iron ore market. You know, for the big three mining company, they really hope good market for the iron ore, because, as I mentioned, for the structure of China steel structure, we depend too much iron ore. Last year, China imported about more than 1 billion tons of iron ore. First 8 months, the China's iron ore import also keeping about 6%. So, of which about 63 to 65 from Australia. We have a lot of debate about the China market. Some are still thinking, oh, China still have a long way to go for the investment. And you can see that the economic mentioned the date for the government also very high. So we cannot depend too much for the government to investment. But you can see this year the market is good because the infrastructure investment by the government increased about 20%. So we don't think that the investment in the infrastructure cannot keep high increase. So that's very important. Another, I mentioned about 35% of China's steel consumption go to the machinery, manufacturing. Now about more than 200 industry products over the 500 globally. China is the number one. You can see China import a lot of machinery, home appliances. We cannot keep high increase for that one. So that means for the investment area, for the manufacturing area, we cannot see where the new market for China steel. That's one thing. And another very important thing for the structure of the economy. And according to our research, if the structure of a big country economy, that means the service industries contribute about more than 50%. And at the same time, the consumption contribute more than 60% of the economy. You cannot expect your market continue increasing. So that's our difference between mining company and our research. So anyhow, I think I'm right. And maybe you cannot expect too much of the steel consumption in China. If we have continued increase the capacity. It's a big trouble, not only for China, but also globally, because we are half of the world steel. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for the presentation. We have heard that there are some exports of scrap from China to other countries. I'd like to know, number one, will that continue? And second is, I heard that you also have an export tax on scrap. Does it still apply?
Thank you very much for your questions. You know, I mentioned very clearly, you know, currently you can see the structure of China steel. EAF produces only about more than a little about 6%. You can see in Turkey, in the US, more than 60%. We need to structure our steel industries. That means increase the EAF producers, because the pollution by the coal, iron, blast furnace a lot. So that's one thing. Another very important thing is the competition between the scrap and the iron. Also another reason. And the third reason, we should take into account the product mix of the steel company. I mentioned that we have some big company in the coast area. This company will depend on the iron importing overseas. There are a lot of reasons, not one simple reason. Generally speaking, China is a scrap import country, not export. Why last year, this year, a few number export? Because we eliminate the induction furnace, which consume a lot of scraps. And in China, it's very complicated. This induction furnace cannot operate in daytime. They operate in nighttime. So nobody gives the exact numbers, just guess. So with the smaller induction furnace closed, so some scrap cannot go to the steel company directly. So they try to make money by export. But I don't think they can continue to export, because we have a large market to consumption for the BOF, also EAF. So we still need scrap. That's my answer to the question. Thank you.
But eventually the scrap accumulation will increase in China.
You know, but the scrap consumption in China much more labor. If we increase from now the 10% to 20%, we need import of scrap. That's the situation.
Okay.
Thank you.
There's one question over there.
Hi, my name is Bharat Bhatia. I would just like to ask one question. I heard 3 times you said that you are trying to structure the steel industry, and it's too complicated. 900 million ton capacity built. Still you want to structure the companies or countries' steel making capacity, and do you think it's easy to achieve to structure? And the second question is that, do you think China is the only country will be exporting everywhere, because everywhere we see the pressure of liquidity, production, and how you see other countries to react with China increasing up to 900 million or 1 billion ton?
Thank you very much for your question. And I can answer this way. You know, globally, we produce about 1.6 billion ton of cold steel, of which only 17 countries there are still operation production over 10 million tons, and of which only 4 countries there are only 2 countries over 100 million tons, Japan and China. Only another 3 over 13 million tons. Not every country have the advantage to develop steel. It's a true story. So we should study the rule of the steel industries and to see which country have the advantage for that. Even for China, myself working in the steel area more than 33 years, so it's not easy. So now we accumulate a lot of technology, know how to develop. It's not an easy job. So now we cut. So why? The oversupply. You can see that in the year 2015, the total steel company lose money. Why did the year better? Because we cut too much capacities, also cut the bandwidth facilities. So that's why for a big industries like steel, we should go to the free trade rules. That's my answer to the question. I'm sorry.
Hello. We read to the news last week that China will implement a 50% curb in capacities in production from 15th of November until 15th of March 2018 in Hebei and Beijing provinces due to pollution and environmental reasons, and also that they will stop some infrastructure works for this period of time. What effect do you think this will have in steel production and in iron ore imports?
So thank you very much for your question. You know, myself also the first expert in charge of the environmental issues. So, and you know, when in the winter time, a very big, very heavy weather in the north part of China, especially around the Beijing area. So the people ask too much and put a very heavy pressure for the government. So we have a long way to study how to solve the environmental issues. Of course, as I mentioned, most of China's steel production is a long process. So it makes the pollution very serious. Even we reach the standards, but the too much steel company in the Hebei, even in Tangshan city. So that's why we have a planning to cut the sum according to the very complicated rules. So that's why I mentioned the steel price cannot decrease very much because the supply will be decreased by the very strict environmental measures. So that's the answer to the question.
Is it going to be 50%?
Yeah. Totally. But, you know, we see one city, one policy, one industry, one policy, one steel company, one policy. The good company, not cut.
So total production will be cut or not?
Yeah, total. Yeah. Only in few cities, not the whole country.
No, the whole country, what will be the result?
It's a different story. Only about 28 cities, not the whole country.
It's only Hebei and the Beijing area.
Yeah.
Okay. One last question, if you allow me to. What's your opinion on this graphite electrode situation? Graphite electrodes shortage.
Yeah. That's why another big challenge, the price increase more than 10 times. So first, also a lot of increase for the EF, one thing. Second, the environmental issues. The electrode cannot operation heavy pollution. So two reasons.
Any hope of solution in short term?
Maybe after the environmental issues, maybe we increase new facility for the electrode. So maybe still need time. It's a long process.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you.